and the guts will spill out. But since it's already hanging up, I'm going to go ahead and knock the hide down. You'll start up here, and when you're hanging them, it's very important, this tendon right here, that you don't cut it, because if you do, the deer's going to fall. And if you got to hang them by one leg, especially a buck like this to skin it, it's a very difficult process. So I'll come up here, right up close to the ankle. I'll make an incision in the hide right here, just like so. I'll spin the whole way around, like so. Anthony, you want to do that other leg?
Yeah.
Can you reach that high? Or?
Maybe.
You want me to get you a stool or something?
Yeah, I got you.
So, all I'm doing is basically making a big X incision. I'm going to go down this leg, down the center of the chest. Well, I guess you call it a Y, but that's all I'm doing when I knock the hide off of a deer. Because once you get it out around the hind quarters, all this will just peel right down. You don't even need a knife.
So you would hang it in the woods too, right?
No. If I do them in the woods, I'll do everything on the ground.
Oh, okay. But it's the same process, just on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I've hunted places up in Pennsylvania and West Virginia where we would pack in with horses, and if I do that, I'll bring a block and tackle and hang them.
Gotcha.
But that's when you're making a 10-day spike camp. If I'm just backpacking in, like where I shot that deer was 3/4 of a mile in, if I'd have shot her and not had a deer processing class, I'd have quartered her up and carried her out on my back.
I know what the hunter was trying to do when he shot him here. He was trying to shoot down.
No, he wasn't being patient. He wasn't trying to do anything. He was just trying to get around in him and hope he died.
But the deer turned and then it went through the soul.
My guess is that deer was facing straight away from him when he shot, and he thought he was going to get fancy and shoot it up through what's called a Texas heart shot, which I don't agree with and I never will, because basically what you're trying to do when you do that stunt is shoot straight up through the ass end and drive that bullet the whole way through to the vitals. So you're basically gut shooting that deer from behind, and they don't die quick because by the time the bullet makes it up here, it's lost a lot of energy, especially depending upon what kind of ammunition you're shooting. So I don't agree, and I will never take that shot, never have. Never have with a rifle. I've shot him right here in the femoral artery with a bow, but a bullet is this big. A broadhead is this big. At 20 yards, I shoot at a ballpoint pen with my compound bow. I'm grouping 1-inch groups, so at 20 yards, if that deer's facing straight away from me, I feel comfortable going for this artery right here. At 40 yards, I don't, and I won't try it. You got to know your limitations. That's one of my biggest things with this culture around here and other parts, like where I grew up in Washington County, is people want to brag and they want to boast about killing this buck or killing that buck, and I shot this and I shot that, and you see the picture, and they've shot one bullet through the base of his spine, one across the hindquarters, one through the neck, and I'm like, man, you shouldn't be proud of that. I wouldn't be. I'd be ashamed to tell my buddies I had to shoot a deer 3 times with a high-powered rifle. And that I did it over a bait pile. I'd feel like an idiot.
I did it once.
What? One shot?
Yeah.
That's the way it should be, especially with a modern firearm. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've crippled my share of deer, and in your time here today, I'm sure you'll hear about some of them, but I never did it because I was impatient. It happened because things didn't play out the way they were supposed to. And if you choose to hunt, and you choose to take a life, you need to do it with intention. And you also need to understand that it's a responsibility to be as ethical about it as you can. It's not a joke. There you go. If anybody wants to jump in on my side or Anthony's, feel free to. Anybody, it don't matter. There is no wrong way to do it, folks. Here, check this out. start up here and get this freed up, and then you can work this down. And once you get around it out here to the butt end, I'll show you how to cut out around that. But I'll kind of, the rumen's been in this guy for 2 days, so when we do that, I'll kind of be up close and personal with it because I don't want to see the rumen get busted.
Yeah, 'cause then
Go ahead and let him jump in there, Andrew.
Alright.
Don't cut each other, cut away from each other. If you need another knife, let me know. If that one's not doing the job, I can sharpen it. And try not to cut that little tube that's right there. Can you see that? That's his, goes to his bladder.
Yeah.
And if there's anything in there and I cut through it, it's going to spray all over the meat. So I'll come.
It's like the urea glands and all that stuff in there.
Sometimes they aren't.
Sometimes it doesn't empty.
Sometimes they're not empty when you shoot them, but I'll show you a trick to keep them from opening up when you cut the bladder out.
Wow.
I tell people who are just starting out, take a zip tie and throw around the bladder, and then cut up above it, and then,
Makes sense.
yeah.
That's
So,
a big hole.
I'll stick my knife in straight above there.
That's where he was shot before.
Yeah.
Correct. And I'll let you all see that.
That's a big hole.
That might actually be... No, that's not a bullet hole. The bullet hole's up here, Anthony.
It went in here and then it came out that way.
So this deer was shot with a rifle, I'm guessing. Or maybe even an arrow. No, that's a bullet hole.
Yeah.
Nope, that is a broadhead. I'll bet you money that was an arrow. So, someone tried to play like they were a professional. You can tell the difference between a bullet hole and a broadhead hole. You see all the hair that's drove down in there. A rifle would have made all that clawed up. And it would have, would have been right where this narrows down. You can even feel it. All this right here is a rumen, right? So what we're going to do is, as carefully as you can, I can even use your gut hook and demonstrate that if you'd like. So, without a gut hook, what I'm going to do is I pinch this right up here, and I cut very carefully. And I'll cut this stuff out of the way. So, gutting is the easiest part of it, but it's also the part you have to be most in tune to so you don't pop the rumen. And we'll go ahead and get this wheelbarrow up here. And since I have it, can someone push that underneath there? Go. Looking good. This is going to be a little bit bloody, so I'll go ahead and do that. Alright, so I'll pull this out right here. And you can see I just barely cut through that membrane. Can everyone see in there? I made a little incision and you can see in there, you can see his intestines. You give me that gut hook there, sir. So this is the one thing a gut hook's nice for. I've got this opened up. If I don't have a gut hook, what I'm going to do is I will angle my knife outward to keep from pushing into that rumen and busting it. And then I'll just make a little incision and open him up like a zipper. If I have a gut hook, the only thing I have to do is spin this around backwards, put it right here, and pull. And that'll peel that skin right back. Just like a zipper. Make sense? So,
Do you think the heart on him's still good?
probably. I didn't shoot it, so.
Yeah.
So, I'll go the whole way to the base of the sternum. I'm down here to where the bone starts. I can't go much farther. And there's a little band of connective tissue that runs in behind here, right? That holds everything in place. It holds the guts against the spine. It connects everything in there. So I'll pull these back far enough that I can get in there. And if anybody wants to take a peek in there, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. See all that fat and this little thing here, how it branches off and goes down. So right there is the butt end of his intestine. I'm going to take my knife right here, pull that out, and cut that little layer. And a lot of times when you do deer in the woods, you can't see this because you got to land on its side. Right there's his bladder, now that's his intestine. That's not empty. So what we'll do is, I'm just cutting up here as far as I can reach. Check that out. Right up there's his bladder. and the end of his intestines. Anthony, if you want to go in there and give me a zip tie, that'd be awesome.
And where exactly is the bladder?
The bladder is that little tiny sack right there.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not full. It's basically empty. I mean, it's got... Oh, it's empty.
Yeah, okay.
So, I've got this deer opened up. I've got his guts hanging out. And as I said before, with a zip tie, if this deer had a full bladder, I could take this and throw around the top of it and zip tie it all. So I didn't have to worry about it spilling out when I cut it. If I didn't have a zip tie, I'd just do one of these numbers. And I can't get a hold of the bladder because it doesn't have anything in it. So let's say this is his bladder. I'd wrap my fingers around it like that, push all the urine down into the base of it, and then cut it right here above my hand. It's pretty simple. And if I didn't want to spill it, and this was my first deer, I could even throw a zip tie around it like that. Right at the top of the bladder, I'd pull that tight, leave a little bit of it hanging, grab it right here below the zip tie, and cut it. Questions? Oh, sorry about that. So, right there is the connective tissue I was speaking of. I'm just cutting right down along the spine. And you can see it's flaking right out with it. And once we get up here to the hard part, where the chest cavity connects, what in a nutshell is holding this in here is the esophagus. Grab me another zip tie, would you? So what's holding that in there in a nutshell is the esophagus, the thoracic wall that goes to the chest cavity, and this connective membrane. I've got this membrane cut. So what's holding it in there is the esophagus at the very base and the thoracic wall. So right here, you can see is the chest cavity, the thoracic muscle. That's what goes to the back of his chest cavity right there.
So where's the bladder again?
Up there inside between here.
Okay.
Makes sense?
So why do you have to put the zip tie around?
I just don't want this to squirt crap everywhere. Makes it a little easier. Kinga, no. So,
I know they taste good.
you can see, once you cut that intestine, it can get a little messy. I'm going to go in here and wash my hands before I touch any of the meat.
Go.
But, this is the part you don't want to pop right here and right here. If you can see that, that's the rumen. See how it expanded? It's got a bunch of air in it. If you pop that, you're going to get a heck of a stink. So, right there's the muscle. I'm cutting around that. I'll pull this side out and do the same thing. And if anybody wants to feel in here, you can kind of get a feel for what you're looking for. It's down here. What I'll do if I'm in the dark in the woods, I'll put my hand straight along his spine and follow it right down until I hit the base of it. And then, if you just reach to one side, the esophagus is there. But the spine kind of gives you a guideline to follow, if that makes sense. So, thoracic wall's there. We'll cut around that.
Kinga, leave Leroy
Cut
alone.
through that. That's my
Kinga,
chicken.
Leave him alone, Kinga. Don't scare him. I think Kinga likes him.
So, see that connective tissue in there? Right there.
Mm-hmm.
See it?
Uh-huh.
And there's a little more right here at the base. And like I said, the hardest part about doing this is if you drop your knife in here, and then you gotta find it without hitting the blade, which I've done before. It's not fun. So just be mindful of what you're doing and where your fingers are, because it does get a little cramped in here once their rumen expands. I mean, you've got to fight with some stuff and push it out of the way. So right there, I just pulled all that connective tissue loose. And now, I don't get my knife in here because I've cut myself doing it before. I just pull and cut through that esophagus. I just cut the top of that artery that connects to his heart. And you can see him bleeding all over the place.
Well, it looks like you're bleeding.
Oh, it ain't me. If that was me, we'd have bigger issues. I'd need an ambulance. So, right there, I'm pulling on his esophagus. It's kind of hard to see because it's in underneath everything. But I'll show you what it was once I roll the guts out. You'll be able to see exactly what I was pulling on. So, check this out. Right here's what I was grabbing. You'll have to look the whole way down in there. If you want, you can even stick your phone down in there. You see that white tube? See it?
Yeah, I see it.
That's what I pulled on and broke. Right there's the end of it. And that was hooked up to here. His trachea and his esophagus and all that is what I pulled loose. Right there's his heart, and right here's all that's keeping it from rolling out. That's the cardiac muscle I was talking about. Questions?
So is there a reason you didn't cut the breastbone yet? And because it looks like it would have just fallen right out if you'd done that. Is there a reason you pull it out over the top instead of cutting through?
I don't like putting a saw near my meat because I don't like chewing bone chips. That's the only reason. You could, though. That and it would be awfully hard to split it with the guts in there without popping them.
I see, okay.
Yeah. So, that's all you have to work with a deer's vitals behind the shoulder. The lungs and the heart. And people are surprised when I tell them, if you look right here, you see that ring of that cardiac muscle? Right here?
Mm-hmm.
That's the start of that. So right here where my knife's at, forward is where that deer's vitals sit.
Is that the diaphragm?
What?
That muscle up here, is that just the diaphragm there?
That separates the
Yeah.
circulatory system and the respiratory system from the rest of it. So the lungs, the heart, the liver all sit forward of that muscle wall.
Okay. Oh, come on, buddy.
Does that make sense?
Kinga, stop.
So your vital zone on a deer, people say starts right here, but in reality, about 4 inches of that is what I call no man's land, where there is nothing but space. But in general, you shoot a deer somewhere right in there, you're going to drop them. So,
Are you gonna keep the heart?
I am. Right there's a ticker on that deer. Can you go get a bag from inside for me, Anthony? Right there's your heart. Which I think is some of the best eating out there. There's your lungs. I'll go ahead and pull them loose from here for you. There's your lungs. So when people say a double lunged a deer, when their lungs sit in there, they sit like this. And if a deer's standing broadside, you can shoot through both lungs. A lot of times when you only get one is when they're quartered. And then when they're quartered, you'll hit the side of one and the arrow will come through like this. Or like this, or like this, whatever. But a broadside shot, you can typically get both of them and knock the heart out all at once. There's your liver. Yeah, he was a healthy deer, man. Big deer, too. Anybody else time? I would look, but I'm not.
It's 11 o'clock.
Is it already? I'd say we actually burned through this one pretty quick.
So can you eat the liver or no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, you already got one of my deer hearts. You're not getting the other one. I'm going to tell you what. No. No.
Kanga.
Don't even think about it.
And you know how to check if the liver's good?
Yeah, it has spots on it. It's
Yeah.
not. If it's not good, it'll be mottled and have spots. All that other stuff. So, when I said people leave them hang for a few days, this is how they'll leave them. Or with the guts out and the hide on them.
What's this little piece right here?
Where, right here?
Yeah.
That is a gallbladder.
That's what I thought. It's that big on a deer?
Yeah. On a big deer like this, it is. So there you go. We can pull the wheelbar off from underneath him.
Would you be able to split that breastbone with the knife on a deer like this, or is it just too big?
Knife you could, a hacksaw you could, or with a hacksaw you could, with a knife you probably couldn't.
Could not, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty thick.
that's why, like I said, the deer